Your body was designed for one planet. Every muscle fiber, every bone cell, every drop of blood evolved under Earth's constant downward pull. Remove that force, and the human form begins to unravel. What happens when a human spends 10 years floating through the void? The changes begin immediately and never stop. Before we explore this transformation, drop a quick comment about where you're listening from. If you enjoy these journeys into human limits, a simple subscribe keeps more coming. This long stay in space rewrites the human blueprint. The first month tells the whole story. An astronaut reaches for a floating water bottle. Her fingers close around smooth plastic. The motion feels effortless. Too effortless. Her arm moves without fighting downward resistance. Muscle fibers begin dissolving themselves within days. Legs that once carried body weight now float weightless. Arms that lifted objects against resistance now push through empty air. Each day claims another piece. The process runs with mechanical precision. Week after week, arms and legs shrink to thin appendages. The metallic taste of recycled air fills her mouth as she watches her biceps fade. Muscles disappear faster than anyone predicted. A heartbeat echoes through the quiet station. The sound feels different now. Softer, less forceful than it used to be on Earth. Blood flows without gravity's constant opposition. Cardiac tissue starts shrinking within days. Chamber walls thin as muscle fibers dissolve. The heart literally becomes smaller, weaker, less capable of the contractions that once seemed effortless. Medical monitors show readings that resemble advanced heart disease. The organ that once pumped blood against gravity now struggles with simple horizontal circulation. Climbing a single flight of stairs would demand more effort than the weakened heart could provide. The heart forgets how to be strong. The medical bay hums with scanner activity. Bone density readings appear on the screen. Numbers that make no sense. A femur that measured solid weeks ago now shows gaps like Swiss cheese. Calcium pours out of bones at 2% per month. Weight-bearing bones dissolve fastest. The skeleton that once supported full body weight against gravity now serves no structural purpose. Bones become brittle as old paper. A simple bump against a wall could snap a weakened tibia. The astronaut's spine stretches longer as vertebrae lose their compressed density. Fresh fractures heal slowly in the calcium-depleted environment. Skeletons become suggestions of their former selves. Sharp pain shoots through her lower back. The agony comes without warning. Calcium flooding from dissolving bones has nowhere to go. It collects in kidneys like tiny razor blades. Kidney stones form with mechanical precision. Each stone built from calcium that once strengthened her skeleton. The pain arrives in waves that leave her gasping. Urine tests show dangerous mineral concentrations. Her body processes bone material faster than it can eliminate the excess calcium. The station's medical protocols include emergency pain medication for kidney stone episodes. Dissolved bones become internal weapons. Her spine pushes upward against the measurement wall. A few centimeters taller than when she arrived, the vertebrae decompress without gravity's constant downward pressure. Discs expand like released springs. Height increase sounds positive until the pain starts. Stretched ligaments protest their new positions. Nerve pathways shift as the spinal column extends beyond its design parameters. Lower back pain becomes constant background noise. Simple movements trigger sharp jolts down her legs. The spine that once maintained perfect posture now wavers like a bent antenna. Sleep becomes impossible without careful positioning to relieve pressure on overextended joints. Longer spines break more easily than short ones. The bathroom mirror reflects a stranger's face. Puffy cheeks sag downward. Swollen eyelids narrow her field of vision. Blood that once pooled in her legs now gathers in her head, like water in a tilted bucket. Her legs shrink daily. Muscles that once held shape now hang loose around bones. The contrast grows more dramatic each week. In zero gravity, blood ignores the old uphill fight. Vessels that once strained upward now send it freely toward the brain. Her face expands while her legs waste away. The metallic taste of recycled air mingles with the salt of constant sinus pressure. Fluid slips toward the easiest route. She wraps the blood pressure cuff around her upper arm. The automated pump inflates with mechanical precision. Numbers appear on the digital display. Her heart works less now than it did in the first month. Cardiac chambers shrink like deflating balloons. The muscle that once fought gravity now works with almost no resistance. The organ adapts by becoming smaller, weaker, tuned for weightless days. Medical readings show a heart designed for a different planet. Hearts forget their original purpose. Something feels wrong during her morning exercise routine. The stationary bike pedals move easily under her feet. Too easily. Her lungs strain for oxygen her blood can no longer carry cleanly. Her bone marrow slows its output each week. Less oxygen rides each beat, and endurance drops. Simple movements leave her gasping. Her complexion grows pale despite the station's artificial lighting. Blood tests confirm what her mirror already shows. Exercise sessions become shorter as her body loses its ability to fuel basic activity. Thin blood carries thin hope. Her hand grips the handrail tighter than necessary. The simple act of moving from horizontal to vertical sends her vision into gray tunnels. Pressure reflexes that once adjusted automatically now fail to keep up. Standing triggers immediate dizziness. Her body cannot redistribute fast enough to hold consciousness. The reflexes trained by Earth's gravity no longer answer on time. Each attempt to rise quickly results in the same blackout sequence. Vision narrows, balance disappears, consciousness fades. Recovery takes longer each time. Vertical movement becomes a calculated risk. The vessel wall monitor displays cross-sectional images. Artery walls show dangerous thinning. Elastic fibers that once stretched and contracted with each heartbeat now appear brittle and weak. Blood vessels lose their structural integrity week by week. On Earth, one hard pulse would tear these weakened walls. Her system adapts to space by becoming fragile beyond repair. The monitor's red warnings indicate vessel walls approaching critical thinness. Back in Earth gravity, failure would come fast. Her circulatory system becomes incompatible with its home planet. Vessels thin to breaking point. She pushes off the wall to cross the laboratory module. The motion sends her tumbling in 3 directions simultaneously. Her inner ear canals no longer detect up from down. Balance organs that evolved over millions of years surrender to weightless confusion. Fluid in her semicircular canals floats without gravitational reference. The tiny stones that once indicated direction now drift uselessly. Nausea hits in waves that never fully subside. Simple movements trigger violent spinning sensations. Closing her eyes makes the vertigo worse. Opening them provides no relief. The bitter taste of anti-nausea medication coats her tongue constantly. Balance becomes a forgotten concept. The headache pounds behind her eyeballs with mechanical precision. Brain fluid accumulates without gravity to drain it downward. Pressure builds inside her skull like water in a closed container. Vision blurs at the edges as optic nerves compress. Her temples throb with each heartbeat. Cognitive tasks that once seemed automatic now require conscious effort. Memory gaps appear during routine procedures. Reading becomes impossible when letters blur together on the screen. Simple calculations take twice as long as they should. The pressure squeezes thoughts into narrow channels. Skulls were never designed to contain rising tides. The communication console blinks with an incoming message from Earth. She stares at the notification for minutes without responding. Motivation that once drove her daily routines has evaporated. Brain chemicals that regulate mood shift into unfamiliar patterns. Reward pathways built for ordinary routines misfire in weightless conditions. Sleep cycles collapse, and simple decisions become overwhelming mental obstacles. Her reflection in the dark screen shows hollow eyes that no longer recognize familiar emotions. The message from Earth remains unanswered as apathy settles deeper into her neural pathways. Brain chemistry forgets how to care. Her sleep compartment feels like a floating coffin. 16 sunrises and sunsets cycle past the station window each day. Her brain cannot establish stable sleep patterns when day and night flash by too fast to hold. Sleep arrives in fragments scattered across the clock. Dreams blend with waking thoughts until the boundary disappears entirely. Exhaustion accumulates in layers that rest cannot eliminate. The sleeping bag drifts around her body as she rotates slowly through the dark space. Temperature regulation fails when blankets float away from skin. The soft hum of life support systems creates the only consistent rhythm in her chaotic sleep cycles. Sleep becomes broken pieces that never form a whole. Her hand reaches for the floating tablet computer. The device appears both inches away and miles distant simultaneously. Spatial relationships that once seemed obvious now confuse her perception. Distance becomes an abstract concept without gravitational reference points. Objects shrink and expand as her brain struggles to process three-dimensional space. The tablet finally connects with her palm after several failed attempts at coordination. Navigation through the station modules requires conscious mapping of each movement. Automatic spatial awareness has vanished completely. The sharp edge of the tablet cuts into her palm as she grips too hard, uncertain of the pressure needed. Space erases the meaning of here and there. The taste of recycled protein paste fills her mouth. She swallows with deliberate force. The food bolus moves slowly down her esophagus without gravity's assistance. Stomach muscles work harder to process material that wants to float rather than settle. Her throat contracts multiple times for each swallow. Food particles drift upward toward her mouth instead of continuing toward her stomach. Acid reflux becomes a constant companion. Simple meals require concentrated effort to keep food moving in the correct direction. Each bite demands conscious muscle control that once happened automatically. The sore burn of stomach acid reaches her sinuses. Food keeps reversing course. Swallowing becomes an uphill battle. Sharp pressure builds in her abdomen without warning. Gas bubbles that once rose naturally through her digestive tract now remain trapped in floating pockets. Her intestines stretch beyond comfort. Air accumulates in unexpected places. Abdominal pain arrives in waves that leave her doubled over in the narrow corridor. Jas can't find an exit. Pressure builds in places her body never practiced. Relief doesn't come. Gas bubbles drift through her intestines at random. Normal digestive sounds fade into heavy bloating. Her uniform waistband cuts into swollen tissue. Trapped air expands further. Gas finds no escape road in zero gravity. The waste management facility offers no privacy or comfort. She strains against the restraint system designed to keep her position during elimination. Waste no longer slides along. Manual encouragement replaces the old downward pull. Bowel movements become weekly events marked on her calendar. Intestinal muscles that once relied on downward pull now work against floating matter that refuses to progress normally. Abdominal massage becomes part of her daily routine. Digital stimulation replaces the old reflex. Her body won't finish on its own. The metallic clang of the waste system echoes through the module as she completes another difficult elimination cycle. Natural bodily functions become mechanical procedures. Her mouth feels dry despite drinking water moments earlier. Saliva production drops. Her glands stay quiet in weightlessness. Food particles stick to her teeth and gums instead of washing away with normal oral fluids. Stomach acid thins out in weightlessness. Meals that once broke down completely now leave undigested chunks floating in her stomach cavity. Nutrients slip past her gut. Enzymes can't mix through the food the way they used to. Her body processes less nutrition from the same caloric intake. The chalky residue of unprocessed supplements coats her tongue hours after consumption. Digestive chemistry forgets its original purpose. Blood test results scroll across the medical monitor screen. Immune markers show dangerous vulnerability levels. Beneficial bacteria that once protected her digestive system die off in weightlessness. Harmful microorganisms multiply in the disrupted gut environment. Her immune system struggles against pathogens that healthy gut bacteria once controlled automatically. Minor cuts that should heal within days now remain infected for weeks. Her body cannot mount effective immune responses without its microbial allies. Antibiotic treatments become routine. Her natural defenses keep deteriorating. Microscopic defenders abandon their posts one by one. Something feels wrong behind her eyelids. Pressure builds in her eyeballs like slowly inflating balloons. Vision narrows from the edges inward as fluid accumulates where it should drain. Reading text on her tablet requires squinting and concentration. Colors fade into gray shadows. Sharp edges blur into soft suggestions. The station's bright LED panels now appear dim and unfocused. Her pupils respond slowly to light changes. Distance perception fails when she reaches for floating objects that seem closer than they actually are. Cataracts form milky clouds across her corneas as months pass without gravitational drainage. The bitter taste of eye drops provides temporary relief from mounting pressure. Eyes forget how to focus on tomorrow. The galley module smells like nothing at all. Her nasal passages stay permanently swollen without gravity to drain accumulated fluids. Chronic congestion blocks scent molecules from reaching receptors that once identified thousands of different odors. Food packets taste identical regardless of their labeled contents. Strawberry and beef stew produce the same bland sensation on her tongue. Taste buds that once distinguished subtle flavors now detect only basic textures. She adds extra salt and spices to every meal without improvement. Her brain cannot process flavor signals that her damaged sensory organs no longer transmit. Eating becomes purely mechanical fuel consumption. Taste buds surrender their reason for existence. She picks at the small cut on her fingertip. The wound appeared 3 weeks ago from a minor contact with a sharp edge. Red infection spreads outward from what should have been a trivial injury. Her immune cells move sluggishly through tissue that cannot mount proper inflammatory responses. White blood cell counts drop steadily on her weekly medical readouts. Infections that healthy immune systems would eliminate within days now persist indefinitely. Simple scratches become open sores that weep clear fluid. Her body cannot generate the cellular responses needed for basic tissue repair. Antiseptic wipes become daily necessities for wounds that refuse to close. Healing becomes a forgotten biological process. Her sleeve catches on a protruding cable connector. The fabric tears away along with a strip of skin underneath. What should have been minor contact creates a gaping wound that bleeds more than it should. Her epidermis has become so thin it tears on contact. Skin that once protected her from minor impacts now tears at the slightest friction. Bruises appear from gentle contact with walls and equipment. Her arms show purple patches from interactions that once left no marks. Cell regeneration slows to imperceptible rates. New skin grows poorly over wounds that expand rather than contract during the healing process. Blood seeps through bandages that cannot contain the persistent bleeding. Skin forgets its protective purpose. A constant ringing fills both ears simultaneously. The high-pitched tone never varies in intensity or frequency. Real sounds from the station's equipment blend into the tinnitus until she cannot distinguish actual audio from phantom noise. Conversations become impossible when voices seem to arrive from multiple directions at once. Her brain cannot process directional audio cues that once helped her locate sound sources. Volume perception fails as quiet mechanical hums seem as loud as spoken words. The delicate hair cells in her inner ears deteriorate without gravitational orientation cues. Her fingers press against her temples in futile attempts to silence the eternal ringing. Silence becomes an extinct sensation. The observation window shows the same view of Earth rotating below. She counts the wall panels around her sleeping compartment again. A 10 square meters living space. The same space, day after day for years. Her breathing becomes shallow when she thinks about the metal walls closing in. Panic attacks arrive without warning as the station's cramped dimensions press against her consciousness. Sleep brings dreams of endless corridors that lead nowhere. She wakes gasping for air that feels thick and recycled. The walls seem closer each morning. Her fingernails scratch grooves into the soft plastic wall, covering as anxiety peaks during another sleepless night. The cabin shrinks smaller every day. The silence between radio transmissions stretches longer than usual. Earth voices arrive after a delay of several seconds. Conversations become impossible when every exchange requires waiting for responses that feel like they come from another lifetime. Her family's faces blur together in old video messages she replays endlessly. Their lives continue in real time while she experiences everything through delayed recordings and scheduled check-ins. Birthdays pass unmarked. Holidays become meaningless entries on her digital calendar. The planet below holds everyone she has ever loved, separated by a distance her body can feel in its bones. The metallic echo of her own voice talking to empty air becomes the only immediate human sound. That short gap might as well be another world. Her crewmate chews his morning ration with deliberate, mechanical precision. The sound of his jaw working triggers immediate rage that she struggles to contain. 3 years of hearing the same person eat, breathe, and speak have worn her patience beyond recovery. Small habits that once seemed neutral now feel like personal insults. His breathing patterns during sleep keep her awake with irrational fury. Every conversation becomes a tinderbox of accumulated irritations. She retreats to the farthest module when he enters the common area. Physical separation provides the only relief from homicidal thoughts that surprise her with their intensity. Her hands shake with suppressed violence when he clears his throat in the same familiar way. Familiar faces become triggers. She stares at the digital chronometer display without comprehension. Numbers change but carry no meaning in an environment where sunrise loops again and again. Her internal clock abandoned any attempt to track Earth time months ago. Events that feel like they happened yesterday occurred weeks in the past. Recent activities seem like ancient memories. Time flows in irregular chunks that resist organization into coherent sequences. Her mission schedule becomes the only anchor to structured time. Without external deadlines, she loses entire days to floating meditation that feels both endless and instantaneous. Mission Control's daily briefings arrive at what feels like random intervals in her disconnected perception of time's passage. Time becomes a broken measuring stick. Her personal photo drifts past her face in the observation module. The image shows her family gathered around a birthday cake. She reaches for the photograph, but her fingers pass through empty air. The picture existed only in her mind, projected with photographic clarity into her visual field. Memories play as current events in her conscious awareness. Conversations with people on Earth feel as real as interactions with her sleeping crewmate. Her brain can no longer distinguish between internal experiences and external reality. Dead relatives visit her during routine maintenance tasks. She holds lengthy discussions with phantom visitors who provide detailed responses to complex questions. The boundary between imagination and perception dissolves completely as isolation rewrites the basic functions of consciousness. Mind creates its own population when reality provides none. He shaves the same face that no longer grows proper stubble. Razor blades glide over skin that produces only sparse, thin hairs. The mirror reflects soft features where sharp jawlines once defined his appearance. Muscle mass that testosterone once maintained continues its steady disappearance. His voice cracks during routine communications with Earth. Energy that once drove physical activity now feels like a distant memory. Simple tasks require rest periods that would have embarrassed his younger self. Libido vanished without ceremony or explanation. Sexual function belongs to a different person, in a different lifetime. The electric razor buzzes against skin that feels foreign to his touch. Manhood becomes a fading photograph. The medical bay contains no feminine hygiene supplies. She stopped requesting them months ago when her menstrual cycle disappeared completely. Ovaries that once released eggs monthly now remain dormant in her abdomen like sleeping organs. Hot flashes arrive without warning during routine maintenance tasks. Sweat beads on her forehead as internal temperature regulation fails unpredictably. Night sweats soak her sleeping garments again and again. Her body temperature swings wildly through the day. Hormonal storms rage through her nervous system without the cyclical patterns that once marked time's passage. The absence of monthly bleeding marks the end of biological functions that defined half her lifetime. Womanhood shuts down its machinery. The small cut on her palm refuses to close properly. Weeks have passed since the minor injury occurred during equipment maintenance. Edges that should knit together stay apart. The gap refuses to fill with new tissue. Cell regeneration slows to imperceptible rates throughout her body. Hair grows in thin, brittle strands that break at the slightest touch. Fingernails develop ridges and weak spots that split without pressure. Bruises that once faded within days now persist for weeks as dark purple reminders of minor impacts. Her skin cannot produce the cellular renewal that once happened automatically. The metallic smell of antiseptic cream provides the only progress against infections that healthy tissue would have eliminated naturally. Regeneration becomes a lost biological skill. She wakes with her heart racing for no apparent reason. Adrenaline floods her bloodstream during simple activities like eating breakfast or checking equipment readings. Her nervous system interprets every minor stimulus as a major threat requiring immediate fight or flight responses. Sleep provides no rest. Stress hormones keep her body switched on through the night. Cortisol should drop during sleep. Instead, it stays high, grinding down her adrenal glands. Blood pressure stays elevated even during meditation sessions designed to promote relaxation. Her cardiovascular system operates in permanent emergency mode that cannot be switched off. Anxiety becomes the baseline emotional state rather than an occasional response to actual problems. Calm becomes an extinct emotion. Her hands shake as she attempts to input data on the control console. Fine motor control requires conscious effort when her metabolism runs at unpredictable speeds. Body temperature regulation fails as her thyroid gland produces erratic hormone levels. Some days bring hyperactive metabolism that leaves her sweating and trembling. Other days deliver sluggish metabolism that makes simple movements feel like swimming through thick fluid. Weight fluctuates wildly despite consistent caloric intake. Her body cannot maintain steady energy production when hormonal signals arrive in chaotic patterns rather than regulated cycles. The bitter taste of synthetic thyroid medication coats her tongue as she swallows pills that provide minimal improvement. Internal clocks tick at random speeds. High-energy particles streak through her sleeping body. She cannot feel the cosmic rays slipping through the station's thin aluminum walls. Invisible projectiles strike her DNA at near light speed. Each hit snaps bonds that took ages to set. Cell division produces increasingly corrupted copies. Genetic instructions that once guided clean reproduction now carry random errors. The mistakes stack with each new cycle. Cancer markers appear in her blood work with quiet certainty. Tumors grow in organs the rays reach most easily. Her immune system fails to flag malignant cells wearing her own signature. Radiation dosimeters click steadily as the unseen damage keeps working through her rest period. DNA becomes a broken instruction manual. The solar storm warning arrives too late. High-energy protons pass through the station's hull during her spacewalk prep. Radiation levels spike beyond safe limits. Solar particles wash into unprotected brain tissue. Memory formation starts slipping within hours. New details refuse to settle into long-term storage. Names she knew yesterday open as blank spaces in her mind. Simple calculations that once felt automatic now demand focus. Problem-solving that shaped her confidence thins out day by day. The acrid taste of metal fills her mouth as neural pathways fray. Minds delete their own contents. Her latest blood sample shows numbers that make no sense at all. White blood cell counts drop below levels that keep people alive. Radiation kills immune cells faster than bone marrow can replace them. Infections that used to vanish now linger and climb. Minor cuts become real emergencies. Bacteria that once lived harmlessly high on her skin push through weakened tissue. Her body cannot raise a clean response as microbes multiply unchecked. Antibiotics that once felt reliable now fail against organisms her system cannot identify or stop. Simple respiratory infections drag on for weeks without relief. The constant hum of air filtration cannot erase what her defenseless body cannot fight. Immunity becomes an extinct biological function. The fertility assessment results appear on her personal medical display. Ovarian tissue shows extensive chromosomal damage after years of cosmic ray exposure. Eggs that should carry clean blueprints now hold mutations that block normal development. Reproductive cells cannot repair damage the way other tissues can. Egg and sperm cells formed in orbit carry errors that would follow any pregnancy back to Earth. Fertility rates slide towards zero as radiation breaks the machinery required for reproduction. Her body produces genetic material too damaged to support new life. Even a theoretical pregnancy ends in failure within the first weeks. Parenthood becomes a biological impossibility. She peels dead skin from her forearm in thin, translucent sheets. Radiation burns cover her exposed skin despite the station's shielding. Cosmic rays that penetrate aluminum barriers leave cellular damage that shows up as persistent wounds across her arms and face. Normal healing fails when damage keeps arriving faster than repair can keep up. Skin cancer blooms in multiple locations as genetic control over cell division breaks down. New lesions appear daily on areas that take the heaviest exposure. Her skin cannot regenerate when particles destroy the stem cells meant for renewal. The sharp sting of antiseptic gives brief relief from burns that never fully close. Flesh becomes radioactive wreckage.